is Laura from AllOverThePlace, and this is an introduction video about me and some of my projects in knitting so far. I'll get into more depth about my other type of crafts in other videos. I live near Bucharest, Romania, and I've been fortunate enough to grow up in the countryside, where I learned from a very young age. I was about 5 when I learned how to knit from my great-grandmother. She was the one that inspired me to pursue knitting, spinning, weaving, and generally trying out new things. My great-grandmother was born in 1921 and in a peasant family. So back in the day, it was out of necessity that women and girls usually were taught to knit, spin, weave, and so on, because they made their own clothes. I'm gonna put a picture here on the side, so you will see a traditional Romanian outfit in the 1920s, as you can see here. And even the linen from the shirt was spun from flax plant that they cultivated themselves and weaved into the cloth and then embroidered. These pictures that you see here, they are black and white because the pictures were taken in 1920s or 1940s and so on. But usually the traditional Romanian costume, national costume actually, was mostly embroidered with black and red thread on the white shirt. So that's what I learned from my great-grandmother. And from my grandmother, my great-grandmother's daughter, she was a professional seamstress, and from her I learned many things regarding sewing, and sewing is actually my first passion, because although I'm not a professional, I don't have a job in any of these crafts that I practice, I am a very skilled sewer. I'm fortunate enough to have a stay-at-home job with I own a business with my husband, which allows me a bit of free time to pursue my crafts. So even though I'm not a professional, at some point I did own an Etsy shop where I sold some of my knitwear, and after a while I even got an exclusive cooperation with a store, a physical store actually, in Finland for my knitwear. But as the time went by, our business took over little time that I had, and I wasn't able to continue the cooperation. I don't regret not pursuing this situation, this path with the Etsy store, because I loved knitting, but in many cases it was not worth it. What I got from the money that from selling my knitwear, I invested in better equipment for myself, meaning sewing machines. I even bought a second-hand flatbed knitting machine, to help me with sampling and so on. Maybe do larger knitwear. But I still prefer to this day um, hand knitting, because I know how the garments come out from knitting by hand compared to knitting by machine, and I prefer it by knitting by hand. So this is about me, and now I have prepared for you some of my recent knits. As you can see, all this stack here. Apart from these are, including the sweater that I'm wearing, I knitted them in 6 weeks because I am a fast knitter, and also these are fairly easy projects. So let's start with the beginning. This is a garter stitch shawl, or a large scarf, if you will. It is done in alpaca. It's a blend actually of alpaca and the gray yarn that you can see here. It is repurposed from a thrift store sweater. I usually do go into thrift store in order to find some sweaters, maybe for if they have cashmere or something like that, a more expensive fiber. So yeah, this is a scarf that I did, and I do wear it in winter time a lot. And what I did, I also did this pattern. I believe it was from an Interweave magazine. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was my first color work with this alpaca, and I did it in the same color so I can have some sort of a set. I did this, but I'm not wearing it that much because I go by car a lot, and obviously I don't need the hat in the car, and lately these winters they haven't been so cold as they used to be. What I did different from what it was in the pattern, sorry, I did a double knit band in order to keep me a bit warmer. In the inside, as you can see, I still haven't finished it completely. I still have to weave in some floats, some yarn, but other than that, it's fully functional. It's more of a beanie style for me. Yeah, so moving on. The next one is a very cozy sweater that I did in a repurposed cashmere thread, which was this gray brown color, and I combined it with a silk mohair thread in order to make it a bit fluffier. And it is a sweater knit partially in the round up to this part, and then you can see here I did a raglan increase to continue. At some point I did start the knitwear here, and after I tried it on I did not like it, and I picked up stitches that you can see here and continued with just the cashmere yarn. It's very cozy and very warm also, and did a bit of a longer sleeve to keep me warm in winter. Okay, next knitwear. Before I go into the next one, I have to say that because I live in Romania, I'm fortunate enough to have access to leftovers from the Italian companies. There are several big yarn companies in Italy that produce exclusives for fashion houses in Italy. And sometimes after 2 or 3 years, if there are some leftover yarn from a fashion house order, they will sell it at a discount price. And I bought, for example, this one is wool and alpaca, 50-50 mix, but it's a lace weight, as you can see. It was very fine, and whenever I buy a larger not quantity but amount for a larger amount, usually the owner of this company will gift me a ball of something else, and she gifted me this ball. Well, it's what's left over, and it is a blend of silk mohair, a Bordeaux color, as you can see here, and it has alpaca as well, and a stellina fiber in it. And this one was also too thin to knit by itself, and I combined it with this lace weight, and it produced a marled yarn. Oh, this one I forgot to mention, but I guess you can see it. It has also some micro paillettes here in burgundy. And I did this sweater, which is the pattern is City Limits by Tanis Lavalee. I'll put a link in the description box below. And as you can see here, it's an extraordinary fluff from the mohair, and since the pattern already said that it could be worn inside out, I chose to wear it like this, because the other side looks a bit plain, the knit side. And what I should have done different is I should have gone a size up, because this accent line here, the two knit stitches, on the bust line especially, they kind of pull out and it gets distorted. But other than that, it's a fantastic warm sweater. Imagine all these luxurious fibers all into one, and I don't want to modify it. I will wear it as it is. Okay, as you can see, I'm wearing this is the Weekender Light. Let me show you. It looks like this. Obviously by Andrea Mowry, but what you cannot see here is this is my first attempt to speckle yarn, and I've chosen some colors. I have some left over here, and as you can see, I have some deep orange, turquoise, navy, and gunmetal. Some of the colors, they broke down, as this gunmetal here, you can see it turned a bit green, and in some parts the orange is very deep. And my mistake was I attempted a fade within 4 skeins, and what I don't like, and I did a very bad situation, I went too heavy in some areas. This one is a bit more bluish, and in here, as you can see, I have a lot of other colors. I like the pattern, and I'm gonna knit it again in another yarn maybe, but this one I've decided not to wear it around the house and become sort of a house sweater, because it is wool and it's a super wash, so it will wash very well. And I do like the mix of colors, but I would have loved to have done less speckles. So as usual, less is more. I might attempt a similar palette, but a bit less like you see here. Obviously not this mistake, because this really, I did a very, very bad situation on the skin, as you can see here in this picture when when it was on the Swift, on the picture here on the side. It was okay, and I was really excited to knit this, but little did I know that all these pops of orange, they would not be all over the place. So as you can see here, there are some in this cuff, but not so many, and I would have preferred a bit more orange, a bit more of the base color showing, but this was my first attempt. Moving on to my next knitted item, I did a color work sweater. This is Meadow Moon by Jeniffer Steingass, and it's done in fingering weight non-superwash wool, and as you can see, they do blend well. I did the right size for me, but because I was you have to imagine that being lace weight, fingering weight, sorry, wool, for the body part around here, since I didn't know waist shaping or something like that, I had around 400 and something stitches, I don't remember exactly, and I grew impatient at some point, and it seems to be a bit too short. Also, because of that impatience, I did only a short ribbing. And same thing with the sleeves. I did measure them out. They seem to be okay, but after I wore this sweater one time, when I was sitting elbows on a table, the fabric would pull around the elbows, and my sleeves were like this, which I do not like. And also I did the rounded edge neckline as per the pattern, but I don't particularly like it. I like things to be a bit more close up, and I decided that I will pick up stitches and do one by one ribbing around here, and obviously lengthen the sleeves also and the torso, because it's not a form-fitted sweater. Another thing that I noticed some people saying on YouTube was, I did this a hand wash. I hadn't washed this one, obviously, but I decided that I might put it in a washing machine for about 2 minutes to see maybe it will shaken up a bit the fibers and felt them a bit and make them more a bit more bloom, because as you can see, there is a bit of fuzz. The stitches are well blended and balanced, even for the knit part, but I'm hoping that it will create a more form-fitting garment. Other than that, I'm pleased even with the color, because I'm not a red person, and this is a rust color, pumpkin something. Yeah, that's about this one. And with the leftovers from this sweater, I did myself a pair of socks by Andrea Mowry. I found it very easy, the pattern, and I still have some, I think they're called, oh god, I forgot how they're called. Oh, Curio socks, yes, remember. Curio socks by Andrea Mowry, and I still have some of this dyed yarn, and I'm gonna combine with the same gray base, but I will do the other type of socks, meaning this one by one in knit side, not the purl side. Yeah, so this is what I've done in 6 weeks, actually. I'm not counting the shawl or the beret because those I did them a bit earlier. But the sweaters, yes, I did them in 6 weeks. Mainly because I had a bit of spare time, and the work was really easy. What I have on my needles now, it also refers to one of my spinning projects. So this is my first hand spun yarn, and little did I knew that you are supposed to make it a smaller yarn and ply it in order to give it some resistance. This is spun from a combed top that was done in these colors. I buy my bats from a local person here, but I think she sells them. It's an extra fine merino. I think she sells them for felted projects, not for spinning. I managed to get a pretty consistent yarn, but because it's so jumbo crazy in colors, I didn't know what to do with it. So I stumbled upon Andrea Mowry's Metamorphic, I think it was, yes. And I combined it with this peacock blue, and I'm working on this currently. As you can see, I did a basic helical knit in the round using the peacock blue and the yarn that I spun here. Well, sorry about that. If you hear some meowing, I'm a cat owner and I try not to leave my cats up here in the attic where I keep my yarn and stuff, because they tend to ruin my yarn. They play a lot with the balls, and if you hear some meowing, sorry about that, but my kitties are upset because they cannot be here up here with me, and they like to voice it out because they're upset. So coming back to the sweater, as you can see, it plays out really well. It tones down the craziness of the yarn, because you can see it's very, very colorful, this one. And I don't particularly like the peacock blue, but combined with this yarn, it balances out. They balance each other out, and I think it will be a great sweater. Also, because I've done this yarn, it has more cotton consistency. There's no bounciness to the yarn. It lays very flat, and it has a lot of weight to it. And this sweater obviously is a bit heavy for being what it is. And also there's a difference in gauge, because not in gauge but in yarn size, I believe, because the peacock blue, it's a fingering weight, and this one clearly is a DK or even worsted size. And I combined these two by knitting them up with a medium size needle. So I mean, I went down for this one and up for this one. So this one would be normally worked with 2.5 millimeters, and this one 4, maybe 4.5, and I chose to work it with 3mm needles. And as you can see, it creates a very good balance. You can hardly tell that they're not the same weight yarn. And yes, this was my introduction video. I hope you liked some of my projects, and if you're interested, stay tuned to my other videos to come. I'm gonna present to you some of my equipment. I'm fortunate enough to have a husband that is also interested in the technical part, and he bought for us a 3D printer. And for me, in Romania, it's hard to get some of the equipment that the rest of the world has access to. But I do have a technical mind, and I would like to make some of my objects. And for future videos, I will present to you my 3D printed spinning wheel that I did all by myself, design and electronics. Yeah, sorry, forgot to mention that because it's an e-spinner. And I also did a rigid head loom because I decided that I would like to try that before attempting a larger loom. My goal is actually to build myself a 4 shaft counter march loom, similar to what Louet has in production. And what I also attempted are some of the yarn ball winder, which I have a video about an earlier version that I did with some scraps of wood and whatever I could find in the garage, which was working for a while, but at some point was not enough for me. But now, since I have a 3D printer, I'm being a bit more technical. I can work some parts out, and also I'll present to you my yarn swift, which is not great, but it will be improved because at some point, as you live and work with some equipment, you realize that you did some mistakes in your calculations and in your assumptions about the working product. So this was my introduction video and some of my knitwear. I will definitely knit a bit more and attempt other projects. If you'd be interested to see more from me, please check out my other videos. So thank you and have a nice day. Bye.